over the past year, it's been kind of like a tough market. And what we see a lot of is people asking like, hey, can I still break in? Like, is it still worth it? You know, like, what about the job market? And so we're just going to use this video as an opportunity to just kind of talk about like our honest thoughts on the job market for tech sales in 2025. So I've got 5 things, or we have 5 things. The first one is like, how hard is it to break in today? There's a lot of things that are influencing tech. Obviously, being on the front lines is a little bit different, helping people break in. We have a little bit more of insight into like what's actually going on, like how bad is the situation. It's really easy to be doom and gloom and say, oh my God, it's impossible to break in. You need to have 10 years of experience. Yeah. All right, so that's the first one. We're definitely going to go deep into that one. Second one, what are the requirements to break in? Can you really actually break in without having any tech or sales experience? Short answer is yes. We'll dive deeper into that. Is it still possible to realistically make 300K plus in tech sales? Is AI going to replace tech sales reps? One that's been popping up a lot. And then last, what are the best verticals to break into in 2025? But maybe jumping into the first one, which is probably what most of you guys clicked on if you're in this video, is how hard is it actually to break in today? I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, if you're not breaking in, there's timestamps, so you can jump around if you need to get to the most relevant point. But I would say when it comes to breaking in, like we've seen actually a lot of success this year of a lot of different people breaking in addition to us, having some success in our roles. I think the biggest thing that I've seen, and if there's any trend for those of you that are breaking in that you need to be aware of, this career has grown in popularity. There's still a lot of job listings, and I think especially now that the election has settled down, interest rates are down, I think we're gonna see a ramping up of jobs posted, especially really as soon as December, realistically January, February, I think it'll really skyrocket. But additionally, like I have talked to several SDR managers, and we actually have an episode that may be live at the time of this going live, where we actually have an SDR manager who posted SDR opening for a remote position, got over 2,000 applicants, and of the 2,000 applicants that applied, there were only 15 people, whether it was phone or email or sending a Loom video, that even reached out to them in the first place. And those were the people that he interviewed. So I think, yes, like optically, I'm not going to beat around the bush and say that it's not competitive. Like this career is very popular now. Everyone is trying to break in because the perks are real if you do very well in the role. However, I think there's again, what comes with increased competition is also way more bullshit, way more people who have no business even applying to this role, and tons of people who are just like, yeah, I'll apply to tech sales and didn't spend more than 30 minutes preparing. So I think if you're actually doing the work, and we'll definitely break this down further, I'll hand it over to you for your thoughts. But yeah, I mean, everyone we've seen doing the work, from a 19-year-old with no degree this year getting into one of the top cybersecurity companies, to people in their 30s and 40s that are beating out new college grads from great universities and getting jobs at reputable companies. Like, we truly have seen it all this year. Doesn't mean it's necessarily easy, but again, we've literally seen more people this year alone when the economy's arguably been the worst break in than the last 2 years combined. So
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I think, and we've talked about this throughout like even the year, of like how ironically enough, the people that are doing the work are now standing out so much more. So like, yeah, you have more applicants, right? The job market is definitely heated up, but you're actually like, if there are 2,000 applicants and you're one of these 10 people that you're talking about that are doing the work, you're automatically going to get, an interview. Yeah. I mean, maybe automatically is a big word, but I will say like your success rate and your win rate in terms of interviews is extremely high. Yeah. So the strategy hasn't changed. Like, there really has not been a big change to like how you go about securing these interviews, like with the highest percentage of success rate, right? And I would say like if I were to break it down, so like on a micro level, I think strategy is about the same. Macro, I actually think that we're about to go into a period where, I mean, if you've been looking for a job in the last like 6 to 9 months, it has been harder, definitely. Yeah. But a lot of people don't really understand how these macro influences that we have, like interest rates, like, venture capital funding, like these things have a really, really big impact on tech in particular. Like, tech makes up, I think, 2/3 of all venture capital funding. Yeah. And so when that stagnates or slows down, then yeah, like tech companies are going to like tighten their budgets. And so this is the first quarter where we're really starting to see like venture capital funding make a comeback. And so I think there's going to be some pretty significant ripple effects over like 2025. I think it's going to be a much better year. I think, again, doesn't mean that you can just go out there and not do all the strategies that we talk about. Yeah. But all these people making these excuses about, oh my God, like the tech market is so tough, or like, it's impossible to get a job. Like, they're not really going to have anything to fall back on anymore, because you will start to see more and more teams opening up. You will start to see more and more job postings. Like, tech is still the hottest I mean, the hottest place to be even in 2025.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more with like AI and all those different things. But
yeah, I'd say maybe 2 last anecdotes. It's funny. I was actually at a wedding a couple weeks ago, and I met someone who was the head of real estate for, I guess I won't implicate them directly, but quite literally one of the largest real estate companies in the world. They were literally like the VP of sales for the entire company. And they were talking about, like, we had a few drinks, talking to a couple different people about what they do in business, and they were like, yeah, to be honest, I'm really tired of the industry. Like, you don't even need a realtor anymore. Technology has basically made this pointless. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not to blindly say like do tech because of that, but I think oftentimes it's so funny. I see people that are so fixated on tech. It has 6 rough months and it's like the sky is falling, and it's like, compare that to any other industry. Yeah. Like, if you want to be in sales, what other industry are you going to go into? And then I think the other one too is like, again, just reiterating this, maybe this gives some perspective to people who are skeptical and like, I'm worried about it being competitive. There's so many people applying now. It's like, I don't want to blow this too wide open, but it's funny how you'll see something like crypto and like, think about how many times you see an 18-year-old with a Lamborghini who's selling some NFT or whatever. And you're like, look at all these morons just chasing the trend. And you can't compute in your mind that of these 2,000 applicants in an SDR job, you have 1,900 of them that are just like those kids chasing that trend as well. Yeah. So it's just like, it's funny. It's like when we get into the professional and a career sense, it's like people, whatever, take it so much more personally, and they're looking for a reason to say, oh, this is why I failed, versus like literally just seeing it like another trend of other things that people are chasing. And just because people are chasing it doesn't mean you can't do really well. And you can't beat 80% of people by literally spending like 2 good weekends even learning about it. So I digress. I just, hopefully maybe that hits home to like 3 extra people.
I think that's super, and I think maybe, I mean, this is a big question, right? Like, I think so many people ask this and so many people fall back. It's the easiest excuse to make ever is, oh, like, you need to have experience. That's why I'm not breaking in. Or you need to do, and we're going to segue into this other point, but I just want to tell people as well, is like, this is a really, really good proxy for what this career actually looks like. Because if you look at any other vertical out there, just look at like the job growth change, and you look at tech. Tech has actually like maintained or like stayed pretty much the same. Actually, it's gone up a little bit, but compare that to like other industries and just realize how lucky we are in tech. Yep. Right? Like, it's in downturns that you really get to see the strength of an industry. Look at tech. Like, I mean, again, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we've looked this up, and tech has just absolutely sustained itself throughout the last like 12 months. Yes, there has been like cuts and budgets and different things, but at a high level, like, tech has really remained strong. And that's what people, a lot of people don't understand, that is like venture capital is such a big impact. When VC investors go out and invest into a company, I mean, why are they doing that? Because they want to exit, right, at a higher valuation. How do you increase the valuation of a company? You increase your revenue, right? Yep. To directly tied to sales. So they're going to go out and they're going to hire more sales reps. So I think look at the things that are influencing these different things to kind of position yourself in the market too. So that's getting really deep into the sauce here. But just understand that like it's going to get better in 2025. That's at least our outlook on it. Yeah. It's still been very, very possible to break in, but I think it's going to get even better. So it's a good time. But segueing into the next one, what are the requirements to break in? Like, can you really break in without tech or sales experience, right? We get this one probably just as much as the other one, but I'll let you.
And maybe in a way of answering this. So the short answer is, do you need experience? No. Mm-hmm. I think, one thing we've always been clear about too is if you don't have like a degree, and especially if you're in like the 19 to 20 to 21 range, it like, there are not going to be the FANG companies. Like, Amazon is not hiring a 19-year-old with no experience, but we have multiple people that now work at Amazon that don't have a degree. Mm-hmm. So my point being is, if you are struggling to even get an interview in the first place and you're doing all the right things, we've seen students of ours that were 19 that in parallel to getting a door-to-door solar sales job or a retail sales job, they're also preparing to break into tech sales. But we've also had some be able to go straight in. But that's my point. If you are like, for the small portion of viewers here that are 19 to 20, that's what I recommend. If you're not getting any bites, get any type of sales experience you can, whether it's car sales, door to door, etc. On the other side, like, once let's say you're a college graduate, even with no experience, I mean, like a dime a dozen. We have tons of people coming straight out of college that break in, that have studied political science, that have studied communications, that have studied marketing, that have studied engineering, like literally any major. If you're very focused, like, people coming to colleges to recruit college students are just looking for people with the aptitude and who actually know like what you're doing. Again, 90+% of college students just partied for 4 years and they're like, I like think sales is cool and like I'm competitive, and they're not actually like, if you do any research, you can absolutely destroy it.
Yeah.
And then I think the funny thing is, last note on this before I hand it to you for your thoughts, is let's say you're older than that. Like myself, I broke into tech sales when I was 28 years old. I did 3 years of engineering experience. I hesitated, and in hindsight, I way overthought the entire process. I could have gotten way more money out of the gate. I could have, if I wanted to, gone to like the best companies in the world, no problem. And it's funny, I see all these people that are like, should I make the change? You know, there's going to be risks with going away from like a boring 50, 60, 70K a year job to sales. But at the same time, like, again, like you have such a unique perspective. You've either been a customer of a tech company's product, or you've worked in, as an example, healthcare, and you're very uniquely qualified because you've talked to doctors, you've talked to nurses, you've talked to IT admins of hospitals. You've done so many things that people take for granted in terms of like breaking in the first place, that you don't need any experience whatsoever. It's just really how you package it, depending on the phase of life. You've got to look for, like, if you're younger, there are companies that hire people right out of high school with no experience. But if you're making a career transition, you're way overqualified. But where people lose in that situation is they're not actually convincing. They're like, yeah, I kind of want to do sales. And it's like,
yeah,
well, do you or not? Because I got a 22-year-old coming out of college that's ready to run through a wall. And if you could convince me, I'd love to hire you because you have 5 years of industry experience. Yeah. So anyway, I'll cut myself off. I'm getting deep. But
I think that's pretty much what it is, right? It's about compensating based on your situation. And I think like that's the big thing is even, and by the way, when we say we have people that have like broken into dime a dozen, like we're not just talking about breaking in, we're talking about breaking into the world's best companies.
Yeah.
So our subset of case studies here is not like breaking into some shitty small little company.
Yeah.
It's breaking into like AWS, Okta, like the best companies in the world. Yeah. And so like when we say these things, we truly mean that it's possible. We're not just looking at like, you know, the bottom tier or middle tier of companies. Like that's not really what we do, right? That's nothing wrong with that, but we target the best companies in the world.
Yeah.
And so when we tell people to do this, it's all about like, when you're young and you don't have a lot of experience, what they really want to look for, or what they are looking for, is like, are you willing to go out and do the work? That's pretty much like what sales boils down to, right? It's like, are you willing to prospect? Are you willing to pick up the phone? Are you willing to send a simple email, right? If you can do these things, and I mean, we've said this so many times at this point, but the strategy is the same. Nothing has changed. But I think the big advantage that younger people have is not necessarily that they're younger. It's the fact that they have more energy and they're willing to do these different things. They understand that, hey, I got to do these things, right? I don't have any experience. And so they just think it's normal. Yeah. Whereas the person that comes in with like 5 years of experience, they have a little bit of pride. You know, like even students that we've had where some of them are like investment bankers, they'll have like really successful accolades. They've done really well in their own industries, but they've kind of hit a ceiling, right? And they know that you can make 300K plus in tech sales or really get to those higher levels, but they don't want to start as an SDR, even though like you're going to make 100K, right? It's like, but there's so much pride. They don't feel like they have to pick up the phone and cold call. They want to go straight for the enterprise AE role. Yeah. It's like, swallow the pride, right? Like,
and if I could add on that one, just a quick note, it's like some of the smarter people are the ones that think that watching another podcast and like understanding the lingo is what gets it done, or like understanding that the difference between a mid-market account executive and an enterprise account executive. And it's like, you're missing the point. Like, cool, you know that. Great job. I can listen to podcasts too. So anyway, that's a real story. But
no. And I think that's all it comes down to is like, is it possible? Yeah. Like, I mean, this is the easiest thing ever. Like, if you really want a binary answer to whether or not it's possible, go on LinkedIn, literally like look up the top 100 cloud companies in the world, search for sales development representative, and look at the backgrounds of the people that are at these companies. You're going to see a ton of them have no sales experience. You're probably going to see the majority of them have no sales or tech experience. We spoke to a sales leader the other day, and they were literally like, I want people that don't have experience because they're going to be like, they're going to mold into what we want them to be. They don't come in with these prerequisite ideas of like how to do things, right? That's the problem. And kind of like what you're fighting as you get older is not that like you're too old to break in. It's like, are you willing to do what a 22-year-old would do?
100%.
And to your point, if you can show that, you're already ahead of it. Congratulations, right? That's all you got to do. So anyway, sorry, like just something, again, you guys can probably tell.
We're passionate about it.
Yeah, you guys can probably tell the frustration. And it's like, because we really care, like we want people to break in, right? And so it's like, when we're so clear about it and we have coaching calls every single week with our students, we really try to help people, and sometimes they just overthink these things.
Yeah, same questions again and again. Yeah, anyway, we should probably go to the next one. Yeah.
No. And we've kind of glanced upon it, but like, is it still possible to make 300K plus in tech sales? Like, this is another one where it's like, oh, like, it was a flash in the pan. Like, you no longer can make X amount of dollars. I would actually say that it's possible to make way more than 300K. Even like, my company Vanta has been absolutely crushing it. Like, it's all about being positioned at the right company at the right time.
Totally.
I would say the earnings really hasn't changed much. Actually, I would argue that if you are really freaking good at your job right now, you are so valuable.
Yeah.
Like, you're so valuable, because there's been like a weed out of a ton of salespeople that did get lucky, because it was very easy to hit your number, right? Things have gotten adjusted, but there's still killers out there. And they're not just getting paid well, they're getting paid really well. In terms of like RSUs, stocks. I mean, it's not just about the OTE. There's a ton of other things that you can position yourself favorably with. And so I think that has actually kind of skewed itself to where that if you were good at tech sales, I think that there's probably more upside now.
Yeah, for sure. I know for a fact there are a couple peers that, one for sure broke $1 million last year at my company. Just for reference to like the beginning of this year, in 2 months, I made over $100,000. That was amazing. There's definitely, there's definitely opportunity out there. I know it's not quite the end of the year yet, but what I will say is, absolutely, it's possible to make 300K. I also think too, it's like cannot be overstated. Like, this is where a lot of the people are getting weeded out, is because they did follow people online who are like, I made 300K in like my first year in tech sales. Those people are completely full of shit. And on top of that, again, it's like the people who are barely doing any work think that like, okay, let me break into tech sales then. And they take the first job that comes their way, and all of a sudden they're at a shitty company or a mid-tier company. And look, we know some people have to come in at maybe a startup or a mid-tier company if they want to get any experience. But at the same time, like, your goal is, to your point, like long term, when you're 3 to 5 years in, if you have a track record, at that point, you need to keep working up to a great company. Whether it's a super fast growing startup that has really great market fit and is exploding, or a market leader like an AWS or a Salesforce of the world. It's funny, it's like actually at some of the biggest companies in the world, I actually think there's less opportunity to make a ton of money. You have bigger variation. So at these super large companies, there's always people, there's always going to be those 1 or 2 poster children that made a ton of money. But the variance after that is like everyone is like at or below quota pretty much, and like, let's just take the example, the typical enterprise account executive has a 300K OTE, half of that's base, half of that's commission. At mid-sized to smaller high growth startups, you have much bigger variation. You've got people making 225 that probably get fired at the end of the year, which again, still making 225, I mean, not bad. But at the same time, you've also got a ton of people that like blew it out because they were in not only a fast growing company, they had a great territory because when they joined the team, there was only 20 reps. And by the time the company divvies up territories and brings on 20 more reps, they've had a really great territory for like 2 years that was basically unintruded on by any other reps. And so because they caught the right company at the right time, and they had a bigger than normal territory because they weren't at a behemoth that gives you like a zip code as opposed to an entire state, they absolutely blew it out of the water. So, I mean, there's examples at every single company of people making 300K, but I would say, like, again, like almost, that was a super long-winded way to basically say the fundamentals haven't changed, right? Like, that's advice we would give like 2 years ago. I think it's just harder and harder because you've got a lot of flashy things like AI. You've got a lot of legacy companies that overhired and are like weeding people out slowly over time. And also what I would say is, like, quite frankly, there's going to be years of your career in tech sales where maybe you have a 300K salary and you make 250, but it's enough to keep your job. And quite frankly, it's good to just get maybe 2 to 3 years in that scenario. And then you're in a perfect position to make a jump to another company and, be one of their founding reps or something of that nature. So it's like, again, 300K is a good goal because it will push you and keep you motivated. But at the same time, like, have some humility. Like, there is a lot of like timing and luck involved, but you can also control that as well if you know what you're looking for in the first place. So anyway.
Yeah, we were talking about doing this too, not to get too deep into this, but we were talking about like even creating a tier list, like talking about like what are some of these companies, because a lot of these people that talk about making $1 million, for instance, right? Like, that's still very possible, but they were at Salesforce, like back when they were blowing up, right? Like, we're talking one of the biggest companies in the world. And so like by the time that you see all these success stories, but like stories about people making this much money, it's already kind of too late, right? So like if you go to Salesforce now, for instance, we have a ton of students at Salesforce. Like, it's not sunshine and rainbows where you just like join and automatically you're gonna make $1 million, right? Like, it's actually like the opposite. Like, they don't want to pay a salesperson $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? Like companies don't like to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's all about like positioning yourself at the company. But if the company is growing so fast that they have a sales rep that's absolutely crushing and sustaining some of that growth, it's worth it for them.
Yeah.
But Salesforce also understands, and other companies of that magnitude, that like, these are the targets that we need to set in order to maximize like 1-to-5 ratio of like, hey, we have 1 rep, we need to make sure that we have 5 times ROI, right? There's a bunch of other things that factor into that. That's a whole other video in of itself. But point being is like, is it possible? 100%, right? Like, I mean, there's still companies out there, Vance as an example, have just absolutely exploded in valuation, right? Like top reps are absolutely fucking crushing it.
Yeah.
So yes, 100% possible. You talked about this one a little bit, but like, is AI going to replace tech sales reps? And funny, we were talking about Salesforce, we're talking about AI, but yeah. Do you want me to take this, or do you want?
I'll kick it off.
Okay.
Yeah, because I got a few thoughts on this. I mean, one, I think the hype, at the SDR level, like you may see like some Copilot models where AI is like helping you write emails or respond to things, but you maybe don't have quite as big SDR teams, but I think you'll actually have higher paid SDRs with less SDRs on staff, and they're expected to do more because they have a lot of tools. But once you get to the point where you're selling anything really over $30,000 to $50,000, like there's just an element that there's always got to be a human involved. It's just like coordinating the deal, coordinating demos, coordinating actually implementing it for the first time in their environment. And certainly at the strategic level, again, like just we're talking about today, and I'll talk about AI more specifically in a second. But like, again, like I covered some of the biggest banks in the world, and there's no way that you can manage like a $7 million contract with AI. Like it's just not possible. Yeah. So on the flip side though, I also think where people are missing as well is AI also creates more opportunities. Like Salesforce literally just announced they're hiring 1,000 sales reps to sell their new AI product, which I mean, I'm not being hated, right? Like who am I to say, but I would imagine right now it's probably not great. And like everyone who uses Salesforce is going to have to tell these reps to like F off because they really don't want to talk about it right now. I digress. But at the same time, like that's the opportunity and why this will always evolve. Like again, the ebbs and flows of headcount may go up, may go down. It's no different than investment banking in inflationary and recessionary times. It's no different than consultants. We've seen Accenture and all these other companies lay off a ton, and then they'll rehire a bunch of talent as well. Yeah. So those ebbs and flows are always going to be there. But again, the invention of AI, like the company I'm at right now, they're implementing AI into every single product and now trying to sell that as well. Yeah. So it's like, again, there's new AI products that maybe are going to automate a lot of trivial things, but think about all the people that are spending millions to hundreds of millions of dollars with Amazon, with Oracle, with Google, with Salesforce, with all these huge companies. And as Google, Amazon, Oracle, Salesforce implements AI in their own product, you have to have sales reps to engage entire companies and tell them how they're going to use it and all of these different things, right? And there's just no way, I'm sorry, that ChatGPT, I mean, it's basically like a glorified chatbot, right? It's like a slightly smarter chatbot. There's no way Salesforce is going to buy $2 million worth of software talking to an AI-enabled sales rep, right? Like, it's just not going to happen. So, those are my thoughts.
Could you imagine if, we manage a couple of different softwares now with higher levels. Could you imagine if, like, the people that we talk to, all of a sudden we just get a notification. It's like, guys, meet your new account manager. It's like, it's Piper, the SDR, the AI SDR. It's like, I'm not hating on qualified by any means, but it's just hard. Like, I think to your point, people are used to doing business a certain way. Like if we are ever to go into a paradigm like that, it's not going to be with this generation. It'll be, I mean, you're so far out by that time,
exactly.
Like, so.
Well, it's like, and like one last analogy too. I mean, it's different in many different ways, but like when the internet came out, everyone's like, retail stores are done. And there's definitely been a decline. Yeah. But also the internet was a thing in like the early 90s, right? When it actually started to get some consumer popularity. And here we are 30 years later where we've actually now finally seen a decline in retail stores, which by the way, still exist in extreme mass. Yeah. So I think like, maybe 30 years from now, to your point, you will see a decline in the overall number of reps. But I think if anything, it makes reps a highly skilled, highly paid position. And it'll be more competitive, but the reward is there. I mean, it's just like investment banking, right? Yeah. Like investment banking is harder and harder to get into. You have quant, you have like all these computers that are like doing the high frequency trading and all this different stuff. But that just means someone who can operate those high frequency trading computers is that much more valuable and going from 500K a year to like 2 million. So I digress. So
I mean, even at Vanta, like we've been not just piloting, but we've actually like implemented like Reggie, Piper, like these are all like cutting edge AI tools that on paper are supposed to like replace SDRs, right, entirely, and like even sales reps to some degree. And funny enough, it's actually done the opposite, where it's like when you use the tool, people can kind of see through it. Really? And so it's kind of like, I mean, we were talking about this and we were kind of laughing about it, but like every time I'm on Best Buy, I'm like trying to get like some sort of support, or I'm trying to talk to somebody, I'm literally just like spamming the chat bot. I'm like, talk to an agent, because I don't want to go through the 15 prompts of bullshit of like, you know, like, when did you buy this item? Is this item like, it's like just get, because like no matter what, I know that like I'm just getting some binary answer from an AI, right? Yeah. And so even if you're doing prospecting or somebody is doing it for you, it's just not there. And I think like in the future, even like when we're talking about actual sales, like where you actually like are leading a discovery call, people will know that they're talking to a robot, and it'll be the same thing. They'll just like literally be spamming, trying to talk to an actual person. Yeah. Right.
Totally.
And so I just don't see it happening. I think a year ago, people, and I even thought like, oh, this is interesting. Like, how is this going to develop? But I think seeing these early signs of it now and seeing how pissed off people are when they like are talking to some sort of initiative of an SDR or, you know, an AI, it pisses people off. And so I don't see any time in the foreseeable future. I can see some of these, like, obviously like production, right? Where you don't need to like leave a positive impression on somebody. There's not like, you don't have, you know, the person who's going to drive the Tesla standing there looking at the robot, right? But like in this case where you're trying to buy, like, to your point, 7-figure software, you're not gonna do that talking to an AI. Yeah. So
no chance.
Anyway, I just repeated what you said.
No, it's good. I'm gonna cut myself off too, but honestly, yeah, because I honestly, where my head is at too is like, if you want to future proof yourself as a salesperson, and if you have any type of entrepreneurial, drive or want to start your own thing, I think in addition to learning sales by working for another company and having them pay for that, we're not going to go down this rabbit hole. But genuinely creating content like this, I think, is the future that you can actually authentically land with someone, because again, people are talking about like AI created content, AI generated emails, AI chatbots. It's like, yeah, I guess, maybe, but imagine if literally everything out there is automated, it's a robot, and you have two real human beings exchanging ideas that are in the front lines. Like, that's going to resonate and be much more powerful. But again, we're not going to go down that. That's a whole thing. Like,
well, and I think also it's all built on the same model, right? Yeah. Like, it's all built on GPT-4. Yeah. And so like, it doesn't matter if it's called Piper or if it's called Reggie or whatever. They're using the same large language model, and maybe they're tapping into your proprietary Salesforce data and whatever else and changing it, right? But it's like, at its essence, at its core, it's tapping into the same pool of data that everybody else is doing. And maybe there's a couple of sub layers on top of it that make it a little bit unique, but you're going to end up with prompts that are largely the same, right? And so you would need something so specialized and so expensive in terms of data to make this even work. And we're getting really deep in the sauce here. But I'm just trying to really make this clear, because like, we thought this could be a reality.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
when I saw ChatGPT the first time, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. Even when I saw like Qualified's like SDR Piper thing come out, I was like, damn, that makes a lot of sense. Like that I don't even see the need for SDRs anymore. Like that could be a real killer. And now I'm seeing it. I'm like, okay, like this really, no, like absolutely not. So just take it from people that are on the front lines, and not just us. Like, we talk to people all the time, right? We don't just have courses that teach people how to break in. We have courses that are helping SDRs, AEs at every single level, and it's the same. It's the same echo. We talk to leaders. They don't like it. They hate it. It sounds good on paper. Not anytime soon. Yeah. So anyway, jumping over to the last one. Another one that we get a lot, this is probably like tying into like, what should you start with? Like, what are the best verticals to break into? Yeah. Cybersecurity is a massive one that people are just like, I don't know why they're so, dialed into it. But I mean, I'll add my thoughts here really quick. I think we've talked about this previously, but I don't think it matters like where you start. I think like, position yourself in a company that is, it's kind of like when people are like, oh, I just want to do what I love, right? Yeah. And you didn't go into sales because you like absolutely love selling to people and being told to fuck off, right? like a big, maybe you do, but a big part of the reason why you go into sales is to make money. Yeah. So, and it's a lot more fun when you're hitting your number and you're crushing your goals and your quota, and you really quickly forget what you're selling, and the core essence of what you're doing becomes, am I hitting my number? Yeah. Right? And so don't target a vertical just because it's like the hottest thing that you see on Google. Like,
yeah, definitely not.
Cybersecurity is awesome. There's some great companies. I'm in cybersecurity, right? I didn't really expect to land in cybersecurity. I'm here because my company is absolutely freaking crushing it, the fastest growing company in the world, one of them at least. And so that's why I positioned myself where I'm at right now. I don't really care that it's cybersecurity, and you shouldn't either. Yeah. Like, some of our highest paying students are in HR, right? Yeah. Like literally. And it's like, that doesn't sound sexy, but they're crushing it.
Yeah.
right? Because they have some sort of like unique technology that puts them so far ahead of the rest of the field, and that makes it easy for sales reps, right? Like focus on getting the fundamentals down, because the reason why tech sales is so awesome as well is you can jump from vertical to vertical.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be inside. Like I was in cloud infrastructure, right? I went, obviously like those are very technical, both of them, but you can jump from whatever you want. We've seen people go from selling sales engagement tools like Outreach to the most advanced AWS technology.
Yeah.
Right? And people are getting like recruited like crazy. If you're just at a good startup that's well positioned, that's what they care about.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway.
No, I agree. And I think maybe a couple distinctions on that as well. I think the first 3 to 4 years in your career, especially, to your point, you're much more able to jump from vertical to vertical. And to be very fair, like you can at any time. Mm-hmm. Like it's not this isn't like mutually or the absolute law. But I think, yeah, like honestly, and what we talk about as well oftentimes is like when you're breaking in, if you're in the position where you're not getting many bites and you need experience, sure, get experience at a startup or mid-size. But let's say you have the pick of the litter, whether it's going to a huge company or a small company. I think going to a very reputable brand first sets you up really well, because again, at the end of the day, if you're talking about being an SDR or maybe a small business account executive, maybe even up to corporate account executive, you can go get an SMB or corporate account executive role if you're a SMBAE at Oracle as an example, pretty easily. So you can make that jump once you're in those big companies. I would say in general, again, like if you're looking at tech sales, to your point, I think fintech is very lucrative, HR is very lucrative. Basically everything technology can be very lucrative, and that's my call to action here, if you will, is don't worry so much about where you land at first. I think if you're not too picky, like selfishly, go for the best logo. You may hate it, but it's the best thing you can do for your resume as your first job or even second job. Maybe you got 6 to 12 months of experience and now you want to make that jump to a Salesforce or whatever. We've seen students do that. And that's really, I think, the most important thing. If you really know what you want to sell, whether it's financial products, healthcare, whatever it might be, go for that, no question. But if not, I think whether it's your first job or your second job, try and get at a pretty solid logo or have a very strong track record at your first company. And then from there, I think the only exception being, if you like highly technical products, it's much easier to say, hey, I sold AWS cloud infrastructure and then go to a fintech company or then go to an HR company versus the other way around. And again, to your point, we've had students at Outreach, which is a CRM tool or a sales engagement tool that helps you send emails and calls. It's not technically deep. You're not selling to engineers. We've had people from there that have gone to AWS and had a lot of success. So again, this is early on in your career. Yeah. But as you get to year 5 through 10 and beyond, ideally you've seen enough and maybe 1 or 2 different jobs, maybe 3. And now you can start to say, hey, like I want to specialize on this. Because as you now, especially as you go on, and one thing that helped me in my specific case, being a former engineer, selling highly technical products, I figured out pretty quickly was going to be a unique advantage for me. And I think anyone can do that. Like anyone who spends 3 to 5 years in a highly technical environment will learn it. But I was highly sought after and able to progress very quickly into an enterprise and strategic role because of the combination of my track record of success early on in sales, but also because I was formerly an engineer. So when they're sending me to these complex environments, like as an engineer, I was literally troubleshooting over the phone Microsoft's production line in Shenzhen, China, because they were losing 120K an hour and they were down. And I literally got a call from a director there who made like 1.5 million a year who was about to lose his job if I didn't figure it out in 60 minutes. And so like I've been in those situations, and that became my unique advantage because with my engineering and sales experience, I was coming up on a decade. So hopefully that wasn't too all over the place of a tangent, but I think again, just recapping for everyone, early on, if you're not too picky, go for the logo, get that experience. If you don't like it, now you're in a great position because you have that badge of working at one of these big companies to go pretty much anywhere. But as you get to year 5, 6, and 7, or if you have, for instance, maybe your 3rd year, your 2nd year as an account executive, you have a blowout year and you really enjoy it, now you're just going to double and triple down. Even if you jump to a competitor, ride that vertical as long as you can, because you've now got a track record of success and you'll be highly, highly sought after by whether it's your own company wanting to pay you more, wanting to promote you, or competitors in the space saying, hey, you know that raise you're not getting at your current company or that title change, we're going to give it to you and we're going to double your salary. And that has happened to me. So
yeah, I think it's all about like timing, right? Like I don't think people get stuck up on this so much, and they shouldn't, not at the beginning, right? Like I definitely agree that like you need to like there comes a point where you need to have like specific experience in the vertical to hit a certain threshold, right? Like if you want to be a strategic AE, yeah, like you're going to need some experience.
Yeah.
But we've also seen a lot of people on the other side of that go really technical, and they're like, I need to be in cybersecurity. We're actually dealing with somebody right now who literally like we're so strung up on that, and then now they're kind of like, I hate it. You know, I want to sell something that's simple. I want to sell something that's easy. And it's like, I don't know, like there's a lot of value to selling something that's simple, because like realistically speaking, you will never be as technical as like your sales engineers or like the people that are actually like coding this stuff. And so you kind of have to finesse your way. Like there's pros and cons to everything, right? And you're gonna realize really quickly, and it's hard to say this to people because they don't get it. They don't get it until they're in it, that it doesn't really matter what you sell, because you're gonna forget about it really quickly. Yeah. Like that's what I keep telling people, is like the most important thing is that you're making money, you're hitting your number, you're crushing it. That is what opens up doors for you.
Yep.
If you have a good enough track record at a specific company selling HR, if it is so overwhelmingly clear that you are an absolute killer, then nobody will care.
Yeah.
Like they know that you will have the aptitude and critical thinking to adopt this new tool, this new thing. And that's why sales is cool as well, because you have so much flexibility to jump around. Like let's say you go into one vertical, the vertical goes to absolute shit. Yeah. Well, great. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're a killer, you can go wherever you want. And and not just go wherever you want, you can go at the top companies.
Yeah.
And you can get like really, really good stuff. So,
and I was going to say, if I could add one point of nuance on that, just for everyone's reference, because it's hard to see unless you've been through this. Yeah, to your point, let's say you ride out a vertical and just the vertical as a whole is going down. I don't know, maybe like all these sales tools, at some point they're going to start to die off and consolidate. Well, you can say, hey, here's how I became the #1 seller at Gong. Now it's saturated, everyone sold it, and that's why I'm jumping ship. But the stories you will tell in your interview and showing how you built out basically a process from scratch, and over the course of 2 to 3 years, you built a consistently top performing type of routine. That's like just some nuance I want to add to the depth and confirm what you're saying, because I think it's easy for us to shout from the mountaintop like it's totally possible, but it's everything you learn along the way. You'll get better at selling not only your own story, but you will actually have developed a process that can largely translate to where, like right out of the gate, you're 80% of the way there. The other 20%, I can spend 2 months learning about this technology when I onboard, like no fucking problem. Yeah. So anyway, sorry for the F-bomb.
No, I think I need to say sorry like 5 times throughout this. But no, I would say the gist of it is like, if we were to add any benchmark at all, is like, make sure your company is just technological, right? Like I think like there's a fine line here. Like if you end up going for like a media agency of some sort, you're not really in tech. That's the only fine line where I would say like, make sure that you can actually say that you were selling tech. That is the only kind of thing where I think a recruiter or manager would be like, hey, you don't really have experience, right? But if you have experience at a good company logo, they know what you've been doing, how you've been crushing it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So anyway, that was I think a little bit longer episode than what we that we anticipated, but this was a really good one. We get a ton of these questions, and it's definitely evolved a little bit. I think AI was a big hot topic. My conclusion is don't be worried about it. Yeah. Actually, I think like there's absolutely nothing to worry about right now. I think if you can learn how to harness the little things about it, you will be a significantly better seller. But is it going to transform your ability to perform as an individual contributor, and 2, your ability to land a new job because it's going to replace you? Absolutely not. Yeah. Like we are so far away from that, and I actually could see the investment in that going down significantly, because now there's some actual data behind it that shows that like, hey, this is not really working out. Yeah. So that's my conclusion. And obviously the fact that it's still possible, you can crush it. So.
No, 100%. Yeah, appreciate it, everyone, if you made it this far. And obviously, like, we hope you get tons of value out of these. We also do run higherlevels.com, and that's why we don't have any horrible ads about Salesforce or all these other sales engagement platforms, which, by the way, if you do want to support the channel, you can reach out. But no, we do support this and give free value through leadinghigherlevels.com. So if you're in a position where you're breaking in, you're an SDR, you're an account executive looking to get to that enterprise level, that's what we do. We have communities for every single level of your tech sales career. But nonetheless, again, if you're just watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify and get value out of it, more power to you. Appreciate it, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.